Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Monday.
Good morning to you. It is a blustery one, Monday the 21st of October. This is Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. Olympian Sir Chris Hoy revealed at the weekend that he has been given between 2 and 4 years to live following a cancer diagnosis. But his post on social media was far from downbeat. He declared himself optimistic and positive, saying, "I currently feel fine." Westminster Health Secretary Wes Streeting summed up the feelings of many.
I am in awe, actually, of that man's courage and positivity. It is that same positivity that has encapsulated his life and career.
Yeah, well, hear to that. As Wes Streeting also said, Sir Chris Hoy is not the only person in this position. So how have you dealt with tough times in your life, whether it is a diagnosis or it's something else that has tested you to the absolute limit? Where did you find your strength from? I think a lot. 80295. Coming up between now and noon.
Dramatic end of the six-day siege. 19 hostages, including the 3 Britons, are safe. The end came with an assault on the building by the Army's Special Air Services Regiment, the SAS.
We will be remembering the 1980s hostage event that gripped the world with renowned historian Ben McIntyre.
Ballistics. Come on!
We have our savings surgery this morning with our expert Tina Matembe. She's here to help you make the most of your money. If you've got some savings and you don't know what to do with them, put them in a nice little savings account, or maybe top up your pension, or you've got other financial issues, your big money as I call it, even if you don't have much of it. If you need to speak to Tina, give her a call. 08085 92 95 00 is the number. You can also leave a voice note and a WhatsApp message on that, and the text number of course is 80295. Does this sound familiar? We'll be finding out who the angriest drivers on our roads are, and calling for more recognition for keyboard players. Is it time we showed them a bit more love?
Live from BBC Pacific Quay.
Across the United Kingdom and the world.
This is what they want.
This.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Right, because it's always the rock guitarists, isn't it? They're the preeners that are always centre stage, or maybe the drummer.
Sensation burning deep inside. I can feel your love is getting stronger.
Baby, I know just how you feel, 'cause I can feel it too. You're my strength, my foundation, you're my power.
It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming, baby. We got to hold on.
Who's going to teach us how to be happy.
In my life, I'm really happy, yeah. 'Cause I know I won't be lonely any longer.
There must be someone special watching over you and me, 'cause we got love and inspiration by the hour.
It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming, baby. We got to hold
10. Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. 42 years on, this moment still ranks as a major news story.
Dramatic end of the six-day siege. 19 hostages, including the 3 Britons, are safe. The end came with an assault on the building by the Army's Special Air Services Regiment, the SAS, not long after gunmen had killed 2 hostages and pushed the body of one out onto the embassy steps. They threatened to kill another hostage every half hour. It ended with 3 gunmen dead, 1 in hospital and another in police custody.
It was, of course, the storming of the Iranian embassy in London by the SAS in May 1980. Soldiers abseiled down the building overlooking Hyde Park, full view of the television cameras to rescue hostages being held inside. And in a new book detailing the days leading up to the siege, the book is called The Siege, historian Ben McIntyre tells us how the SAS were thrust into the spotlight like never before. And Ben joins us now. Morning, Ben.
Good morning, Kay.
Good morning. I note your age, Ben. You're 60. So working back, you were what? I don't know.
I was 17. I was 17, and along with 14 million other people, I was watching the snooker that day. It was a bank holiday Monday. It was Hurricane Higgins against Grinder Cliff Thorburn. And it cut away from the snooker final to this astonishing footage of men in black uniforms or sort of, they look like frogmen actually, abseiling down the outside of this building in the middle of London to attack it. It was an astonishing bit of sort of live news of a sort that we'd never seen before.
Well, that was a question I was going to say. Had we ever seen the likes of which before?
Never. I mean, this was the first time that breaking news had been broadcast live, not just on one television station, but all 3. And there were 3 at that point. Mm-hmm. You know, they broke off. And we're kind of used to it today, aren't we, Kate? You know, we expect news to be presented to us in real time. This was the first time it had happened. And it was so dramatic. It really did change our expectations of what live news would be after this.
Can you remember, I mean, how was it reported more broadly by the papers? What was the kind of feeling? What was the chat in the pubs, at the school gates, all of that?
It led to a huge upsurge of national pride. I mean, quite jingoistic in some ways, but it was a sort of post-imperial moment when British armed forces had demonstrated, it seemed, their ability to carry out things that no other military could do. And bear in mind that 6 days earlier, American special forces had tried and spectacularly failed to liberate the American hostages held in Tehran. That was a sort of separate story that was taking place at the same time. So it really had a sort of galvanizing effect on the national mood. It reinforced Thatcher's popularity extraordinarily. I mean, Margaret Thatcher had only been in power for a year. This became a kind of symbol of her premiership. But you ask how it sort of was reported. In some ways, it was reported in rather a simple way. Which was one of the reasons I wanted to write this book. It was reported as if this was a simple moral fable of brave British soldiers, attacking the embassy, liberating the hostages and killing all the baddies. And of course, like all historical stories, there's a much more rich and much more complicated and I think much more interesting story beneath the surface of what very swiftly became a kind of national myth.
So, and we'd love to hear more about that. But before the snooker was rudely interrupted and we saw this event taking place in live time, how much was out there about what was happening inside that building and how long it had been happening for?
It had been very closely followed. 6 days earlier, 6 Arab gunmen had burst into the embassy, taking 27 hostages. They were protesting against the regime of the Ayatollah Khomeini. They were opposed to the fundamentalist Islamic regime in power in Tehran. And every moment of the hostage crisis had been covered by the news. In fact, there was something like 400 journalists camped out, including Kay Dady, who you heard earlier in that news clip, camped out in Hyde Park in central London, watching this extraordinary drama unfold. So that the world's attention was focused on what was happening. But of course, nobody had any idea it was going to end in quite the dramatic way that it did.
And in terms of the SAS, I mean, famously secretive in terms of the way they operated, certainly up to that point. Did it throw an unwelcome spotlight on them?
Well, this is something that we forget. The SAS was almost completely unknown in 1980. I mean, they were so secretive that really, 99 out of 100 people in this country would never have heard of them. This catapulted them into the limelight in a way that they were not expecting, the world was not expecting. In some ways, it probably saved the regiment. I mean, there were sort of rumours that it was going to be disbanded. It was never going to be disbanded after this. And overnight, young men began queuing up outside recruitment centres saying, give me a balaclava and a machine gun and I'll join the SAS. So they became incredibly famous, which had a sort of, in some ways, a tricky outcome for the SAS, because, of course, as you've just alluded to, you have to be, these operations require secrecy. And I think the SAS has struggled in some ways ever since with the tension between its own celebrity as a group and the need for secrecy and covert operations, which cannot be done in the limelight. And it's really been a problem for the SAS.
In the telling of this piece of history in your book, which is called The Siege, you kind of take the perspective, don't you, of the key groups that were involved in it. So we've got the hostages, the gunmen, the SAS, the politicians. They would all intrigue you, I'm sure, in different ways, but perhaps take us through the sort of key lessons that you got from each of these groups.
Well, I mean, this is the essence of the book, really, is that it's often been seen in a slightly one-dimensional way. I've tried to tell it from all the different points of view, from the point of view of the hostages, many of whom kept records of what was going on inside that building as it was taking place. The hostages, the gunmen have always been seen as kind of faceless, wicked terrorists. I mean, and look, I'm not defending them in any way, but their story was much more complicated than that. I mean, they had been brutalized in Iran. They had suffered, very badly at the hands of the Ayatollah. They were men of violence who were prepared to kill and to die. But really, their interior stories have never been told before. And then you have the politicians, you have the press, you have the police. The work of the hostage negotiators was an incredibly difficult one. And they battled for nearly a week to try to bring this thing to a bloodless conclusion. Many of them felt that they'd failed at the end of it, but it was an astonishing police operation. MI5 was involved, trying to get a kind of audio picture of what was going inside. So they were using the highest of high tech to try to drill audio probes into the building. All these different stories can now be told. It's a much more rich story, I think, and I think better for it because these are not simple events, and I guess the book tries to ask the question, what would you do if you had been one of these people? You can't train to be kidnapped. Nobody expects that to happen. Many of these people were in the building entirely by accident. And they all responded in slightly and sometimes dramatically different ways. And I think that is, in a way, the essence of the book, really, is to try to work out how the reader might himself or herself have felt if they had been in that building in April 1980.
Ben, I don't know if you are, but as a fan of slow horses, who made the ultimate call to send in the SAS?
Well, it's funny you should mention Slow Horses.
Was it First Desk?
I'm an enormous fan. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I love every moment of it. But the screenwriter of that series, brilliant Will Smith, is writing the screenplay for The Siege.
Wow.
They're going to make a 6-part TV drama series out of it, which I'm incredibly excited about. And as you allude, the key decision to go in was made by Margaret Thatcher in a lay-by north of High Wycombe, in the middle of the countryside. She was coming back from Chequers. She was on her radio phone. And in one of those things that if you made it up in a drama, people wouldn't believe it. She couldn't get through. They couldn't get through to her. So she had to park and keep ringing back, and they were ringing her as the seconds were ticking down to the final moment. But really, it was her decision. And it was a huge gamble. I mean, it really was. She had been warned that the best case scenario would be 40% casualties in that building, that 4 out of 10 people would be killed or injured in the assault. That didn't happen in the end. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but actually, really, it was an astonishing success. But it was a huge gamble. If it had gone the other way, Margaret Thatcher's premiership, I think, would have come to a premature halt, and rather a dramatic one.
Wow. But it was the Prime Minister rather than a Secret Service, faceless person.
No, it was her. It was her. In conjunction with the Cobra Emergency Committee that was sitting in emergency session, had been since this thing began, in Whitehall. That was chaired by Willie Whitelaw, the then Home Secretary. But he had to obtain formal permission from Margaret Thatcher to do something that is very, very rare in British life, to pass over authority from the civilian authorities, from the police, to the military. It had never happened before under this form of legislation on mainland Britain before, that for a brief period, it only lasted, believe it or not, 11 minutes.
Wow.
Authority was passed from the police to the military. The military had control. And that's, as I say, unprecedented.
I mean, I know obviously these are real events and we have to remember that, but you've just told us that there is going to be a dramatisation. It will be one heck of a tale, this one.
Well, I hope so. And Will Smith is brilliant. And I think his approach is going to be, we've sort of discussed it, is to try again to look at this story from every different vantage point. I mean, that's what television can do so brilliantly. If you've got a slow burn 6-part series, you really can explore what are the different motivations. Why are these people behaving in the way they are? How do they feel? How do they think? How do they respond to each other? Now, I can do a certain amount of that in non-fiction. I can tell the true story. But in drama, you can almost, in a way, take it another stage further. But I think Will is going to be very faithful to the dramatic facts, because, of course, they are extraordinarily dramatic.
And interestingly, that these gunmen were, I don't know, would you call them Iranian dissidents? I don't know if that is a correct.
Yes, I think that's a reasonable description. They were Arab protesters, really. They were fighting for greater rights in the southwest part of Iran. Not a forgotten conflict, an internal conflict in Iran, but for them a very important one. Yeah.
But I'm just thinking that given that all eyes at the moment are on the Middle East, that element is very timely.
Absolutely. I mean, these on both sides of the battle, if you like, inside that embassy, you had fanatics, you had people who were dedicated to a particular form of ideology and were prepared to kill as a result. And that goes for some of the people who were taken hostages, some of those Iranian diplomats. One of them was a member of the Revolutionary Guard. I mean, he was quite as fanatical in his devotion to the Ayatollah Khomeini as any of the Arab gunmen. And you're seeing this kind of fanaticism, this kind of absolute devotion to a cause, to the point of being able to kill indiscriminately, taking place in the Middle East at the moment. And we all know, don't we, although as a species we seem unable to learn from it, that the quickest way to turn someone into a killer is to kill the thing that they love. And a whole new generation of cyclical violence is being created in the Middle East at the moment.
Yeah. Well, Ben, the book is called The Siege, and you can expect a dramatisation at some point in the not-too-distant future, hopefully. One listener is desperate to know who won the snooker. Ben, I don't know if you remember.
Funnily enough, guess who else was watching the snooker? The SAS encamped next door waiting to go in were also watching the snooker. And as they emerged from this burning building covered in soot and camouflage paint, the first thing they asked the police when they got out was, who won the snooker? That's a plot spoiler I can happily give away. It was Grinder Cliff Thorburn, but it was a very, very close match, and one that obviously, because the television had cut away, almost nobody watched live.
Well, there you go. There's a backstory for you, if ever there was one. Ben, thank you so much there. That's best-selling historian Ben Macintyre, and his latest book is The Siege, a remarkable story indeed of the greatest SAS hostage drama.
We're the new show on the air, and we know we're not the same. To be your number one, well, that's our major aim. What makes this show stand out when the record has stopped playing? When he speaks into the mic, you understand what he is saying. The Chris Moyle Show.
It is 10:25. We were talking on the phone in about Sir Chris Hoy. He has revealed that his primary cancer was actually prostate cancer, although he ended up going to the doctor with a pain in his shoulder, but it got us onto the conversation of screening for prostate cancer potentially. We spoke to Oliver Kemp from Prostate Cancer Research UK, and they're certainly calling for earlier screening of men who are deemed to be at higher risk. So really keen to get your experience on this, and we'll try and keep on top of this. Ali's been in touch saying, after my husband died 20 years ago, prostate cancer, having had exactly the same prognosis as Chris Hoy, both my sons, then around 40 years of age, requested a PSA test. They were told almost mockingly that they were far too young and were refused. Now, although thankfully they have escaped, my husband's brother and my nephew are now suffering. All are now annually tested, no question. And Alan is saying no symptoms of prostate cancer, but I asked for a PSA test and was given one at the age of 69, and it is all good, which I'm delighted to hear, Alan. And Finlay says, 52 years of age, we have a family history of prostate cancer, which puts me at high risk, but despite asking 2 separate GP practices almost every year for the past 10 years, I have been refused a PSA test every time. Men are told by many media platforms to get checked out. How can we if our GPs won't test us? This is really interesting. Please do, if you have experience of this, of trying to get a PSA test, whether it's speculatively or whatever, just let us know how you got on. 80295. Coming up before noon.
Come on!
Yes, if you've got any money that you want to know what's the best thing to do with it so you can make the most of it, then our financial expert Tina Matembe is with us for our saving surgery. She's here to help you make the most of your money. So give her a call, whatever your question is, whether it's about pensions or saving accounts or property or other investments that you might have. 08085 92 95 00 is the number. You can leave a voice note or a WhatsApp message on that, and you can text with your question 80295. We'll find out who the angriest drivers are after this.
But in the name of understanding now,
is yours, hit or miss. What's mine is yours, stick or twist. The choice is yours, hit or miss. What's mine is yours. We all get hurt by love, and we all have a cross to bear. But in the name of understanding now, a problem should be shared.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Time to talk money with our money expert, Tina Mutembe, founder and CEO of Money at Matix. If you've got a question at all for Tina, whether it's about growing your savings, whether it's about budgeting, knowing where to invest your money, then give her a call. 08085 92 95 00. The lines are open now. Tina will be taking calls from just after 11, but do get in touch from now. You can also leave a voice note on that number or indeed a WhatsApp message, and you can also text 80295. Tina actually is checking in with us from London, where she's on important business. Good morning to you, Tina.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
Oh, not at all. So, as I say, you're in London on business, aren't you?
Absolutely, that's right. Here, going to Parliament after this, actually.
And what are you going to be talking about there?
Well, we're going to be discussing the hope that we can get a Fair Banking Act in place, because a Fair Banking Act would help the current system, which looks out millions of people to access affordable credit. That's what we're campaigning for, and so we're going to Parliament to meet with legislators and try to get this across.
Right. So why are people locked out? Take us through this. I mean, financial exclusion, what does that mean in real terms for people?
So financial exclusion basically is not having access to fair products and services. So when you think about affordable credit or lending, when you go out in the market, for example, loans have very different rates, and depending on your circumstances, on your credit history, on various issues, you get a different rate for everyone. And there's millions of people that don't get access to a fair rate, which means that they're not able to transact fairly. And when we say millions, it's not just people. We're also talking about businesses, social enterprises. It's really expensive and if you don't have a good rate when you're borrowing, everything goes up. You can't compete in the market. And so it drives local economies down the drain. So a Fair Banking Act would definitely help if lending and rates were made streamlined. People would have equal access to finance, and therefore it would be a fairer playing ground.
And this is something that is very personal to you, Tina, isn't it? Because last week you were telling us that when you first came to the UK, you did find it difficult to get access, to get good credit. And really, it's been your mission to try and make things fairer and more accessible for people.
100%. I mean, when you don't have control of a narrative, it's very difficult to get out of a space. And I always say to people, you cannot financially educate your way out of poverty when there are no options for you. Financial education is one thing, and actually I've found that people who have less are actually great at budgeting. They just don't have the right options. They don't have options that are affordable, that they can manage to get out of their traps.
Yeah. Well, if anyone has got any questions around that this morning, then Tina's got very happy to take them. 08085 92 95 00 is the number to call. The other thing that's happened since we last spoke, Tina, is that inflation slowed perhaps more than was expected. Is this going to have an impact on savers, do you think?
Well, as we discussed last time, you know, the whole thing of inflation slowing down or going up slightly doesn't hit your pocket immediately. You always find that those changes are superficial and very small amounts. I don't think we'll see a big difference, not soon anyway. We still need to tighten our belts, I would say.
Right. But in terms of people who may have savings and they're wondering, do I put this in a savings account, or, you know, what is the most efficient way to handle this? I mean, are we likely to see the rates available in savings accounts go down or not?
Well, at the moment, everything's tracking to when they say it's slowing down, when the interest rates are going to go slightly lower or slightly higher, again, it's not going to be an immediate thing we're going to find out. I would say try to be as tax efficient as possible. Look at the rate as it is now and make a decision based on right now so that you're making the most of your money at the present time.
Right, okay. So it's very much, you know, be in the present rather than trying to get your crystal ball out.
Yes, the crystal ball doesn't work, and COVID should have taught us that.
Okay, all right, there you go. Very clear advice. Well, Tina, listen, we'll let you get on with what you're doing right now, but you'll be back with us around about 11 o'clock to take any calls that people have about how to make the most of their money. This is Tina Mutembe, who's the founder and CEO of Moneymatic. So whether it is about pensions or it's about savings accounts or anything, budgeting is another one, or financial inclusion, which she's very much tied up with today, then just get in touch. 08085 92 95 00.
This week,
Celtic are in a tailspin here.
Celtic face another huge test in the Champions League.
Atalanta versus Celtic.
Wednesday from 5.
By the score!
Then on Thursday,
Hearts have won it! What a moment in Hearts' season and their Conference League campaign.
Hearts versus Omonia Nicosia of Cyprus from 5.
and Rangers will be looking to return to winning ways in the Europa League from 8.
And Rangers have the opening goal through Bayrami.
Rangers versus Romania's FCSB. European football lives here.
You know. Listen on your digital radio or by asking your smart speaker to play BBC Radio Scotland Extra.
Now the excitement of real arcade basketball is yours in electronic Hot Shot Basketball. Challenge yourself or an opponent in one of 2 dynamite games, like who can bury the most hoops in 60 seconds.
55 points. Beat that, Hot Shot.
Hot Shot is the only game with a motorized moving backboard. Jumper, off the rim. There's electronic game sounds and digital scoreboard. Time's running out. 3-pointer at the buzzer. Milton Bradley's electronic Hot Shot Basketball. When you're hot,
you're hot.
It's 10:37. Kay Adams with you till 12 on BBC Radio Scotland. Coming up before then. It's calling for more recognition for keyboard players, says we should show them a bit more love. And finance expert Tina Mutembe is back just after 11 o'clock, but the lines are open now, so if you're not quite sure how to maximise your savings or any sort of spare cash that you might have, give Tina a call. 08085 92 95 00 is the number. You can text on 80295.
Daisy.
Let's take a walk together near the ocean shore, hand in hand, you and I. Let's cherish every moment we have been given, for time is passing by. I often pray